Alright, so let's add a view that will display the list of all candy. And in order to do that, we first need to place the view inside a views folder. That's where all the views will be by default, because that's where ASP expects them to be. So right click Candy Shop, add a new folder, and I'll call it views. And since this view that we want to have now is for the candy controller, we need to create another folder just for this controller. And we'll name it candy. The name has to be the same as the name of the controller minus the word controller. So since we have candy controller, it's gonna be called candy. So right click views, add another folder, and call it candy. And now we can finally add a view inside of it. So right click, add, and you can choose views, but let's just choose class instead. Because we have an option here to go to web, and you can see we have a bunch of views and classes here. We have Razor Page and Razor View, and what we want is the view, so that's what I will select. And the name of the view needs to match the one of the action that we want to process here. So that's called list, because that's the name over here of the action that we want to display in this view. So this is our view, there's nothing in it, so I can delete the comment. And the first thing we need to do is to bring in the model that we want to work with. And we want to work with the candy model, because we want to display all the candy. So we will bring in add model, and we need to bring in IEnumerable since we want to display a list of all candy. So that's gonna be IEnumerable type for the namespace of candy shop dot models, because that's where the model for the candy is, dot candy. So this view will work with candy model and be working with the IEnumerable of it. So in other words, we will be able to loop through all the candies here. So let's just create an HTML here. And we have the head, of course. And then we have the body as well, of course. So this is a simple HTML. I'm sure this is nothing new for you. So let's just quickly add a few of these meta properties to our head. So here I just added a few of these meta tags. And now let's start working with the body. Of course, body, I have it placed in the head, which is wrong. It needs to be placed after head and before the end of HTML. So what we want to do in the body is simply, for now, just display the name, price, and category name of each of the candy. And in order to do that, we need to loop, like I said, through our model for the candy. And to do that, we'll use a for each loop. And notice that I'm using the @ symbol, which is the Razor syntax. It allows us to insert an actual code to execute. So we'll have a for each, and this is a classic C# for each loop. So we'll loop through candy in model. And notice that this is capital M, even though this is lowercase m. We are looping through the class for the model, which is in this case candy. And here we can, in our div, for example, display some of those properties. So let's do an h2 tag, and here I will go again to a Razor syntax and go to my candy dot, and you can see here are all the properties I have available. So let's just display, for example, name. Then we can do another h2 tag and display, for example, price for this candy. So we'll do candy dot price. And we can format it even to string and a currency, since it's a price. But let's make this actually h3, just so it's not the same. And h4 will have the category name. So we'll go to candy dot, and we'll go to our category property of our candy class dot, and we'll have access through it to our category name. And for now, that's all I need to display in this view. So Everything seems to be ready to run, so let's actually run the application. And it didn't work. What is going on? Well, the problem is that we are not directed to the candy controller and the list action. Remember, we need to add these to a URL to access them. This has to be done in a routing, and that is set up in the startup.cs class. So if I go and open the startup.cs, down here you can see the route. And remember, by default it goes to home controller and index if we do not supply the controller name and the action. But we don't have either home controller nor index action. So basically it couldn't find any views to display. So what we need to do is to add the controller and the action to our URL. So let's go back to our browser. And here we want to add the controller name, which is candy, and the action, which is list. And what do you know? Now we have a result. Here is the list of the candy that we created and that we hard-coded. So we have the hard candy, the chocolate candy, and the fruit candy, and the respective prices, and you can see the category as well. So this is pretty cool, but we can do better, of course. This is just the very basics. So let's add some more data to the page. And like I mentioned before, we are going to create a view model to add multiple classes into single view. So let's do that next.